Dennis gripped his plasma rifle, ready to face 1,000 aliens alone, hungry to spill alien blood for what those Arcturian bastards did to Earth. Get your ass ready, soldier. 1,000 Arcturian sons of bitches are out there waiting to die. Let's have some fun and give them what they want. Admiral Novak barked through the comms. Dennis grunted as he clipped on his battle armor, red blood already oozing through its green metallic plates. The blood of his fallen brothers still fresh. Fucking Arcturians. Dennis awoke from cryosleep, the hum of the TDF battlecruiser Indomitable pounding in his ears. Admiral Novak flashed onto the display. "Robertson, the Arcturians just vaporized Dallas Colony. 12 million dead. We've located their supply base on Zephyrus Prime, a planet with 1,000 of those alien fucks guarding it at Fortress Galen. Your men are dead, but you're not. I need you to go down there and destroy that base yourself. Humanity needs this victory." Dennis clenched his jaw as he slammed his fist on the console. His men were gone, killed by those alien freaks, but he still had a job to do. Blow up Fortress Galen, 1,000 Arcturians guarding it. 1 versus 1,000. Suicide mission. "I'll get it done, sir. I'll shove a grenade up every Arcturian asshole down there myself if that's what it takes. For my boys. For Earth." "Godspeed, soldier. You're our last hope. Fail and we lose this sector. Show those alien shits what humanity's made of. Watch your back down there. Novak out." The drop pod doors whooshed open. 1,000 alien soldiers to kill, 1,000,000 lives to avenge. 1 human. Dennis leaped from the Indomitable and rocketed towards Zephyrus Prime, gripping his rifle, ready to unleash hell. Dennis and his squad strapped into the stolen Arcturian shuttle, its sleek silver hull gleaming under the hangar lights. Sergeant Mike Thompson sat at the controls, his hands flying over the unfamiliar instruments. "This cloaking tech better work," Corporal John Lee muttered, checking his rifle for the 100th time. "Cut the chatter," Dennis snapped. "We'll be fine. Those Arcturian bastards won't know what hit 'em." The shuttle lifted off, gliding out of the Indomitable's hangar bay and into the inky void of space. Zephyrus Prime loomed ahead, a mottled blue-green orb. As they approached, Dennis noticed strange energy fluctuations emanating from the planet's surface. "Anyone else seeing that?" he asked, pointing at the sensor display. "Could be some new Arcturian weapon." "All the more reason to blow that fortress to hell," Corporal Alex Petrov growled. They landed in a clearing near Fortress Galen, the shuttle's cloaking device masking their approach. The squad disembarked, checking their weapons and gear. "Okay, listen up," Dennis said, pulling up a holographic map of the fortress. "We're splitting into 2 teams, Team Alpha with me. We're going for the control room to sabotage the power core. Team Beta with Davis. You're planting charges at these structural points. We hit 'em hard and fast, no mercy. For Earth!" The squad echoed his battle cry and moved out, Team Alpha heading for the fortress's main entrance, while Team Beta circled around to the side. As they approached, a hail of plasma fire erupted from the battlements, sizzling past their heads. "Take cover!" Dennis yelled, diving behind a boulder. His team returned fire, their rifles spitting blue bolts of superheated plasma. A massive figure emerged from the fortress gates, a towering humanoid with pale blue skin and glowing red eyes. It was Warlord Galen himself, armed with a devastating plasma cannon and shielded by a shimmering energy field. "Pony humans!" Galen roared, his voice booming across the battlefield. "You dare challenge me on my own world? I will crush you like insects." Dennis gritted his teeth, popping up from cover to fire at the Warlord. His shots dissipated harmlessly against Galen's shield. The Arcturian soldiers pressed forward, their weapons blazing, forcing Dennis and his team to fall back. "Regroup at the secondary position," Dennis ordered over the comm, sprinting for a cluster of boulders further up the slope. Plasma bolts scorched the ground at his heels. They fought their way through waves of Arcturian defenders, using every scrap of cover and every trick in the book. But the aliens kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Dennis saw Petrov go down, a plasma bolt burning through his chest. Wilson took a hit to the leg, his screams echoing over the comm. "We can't keep this up much longer," Thompson shouted, ducking as a plasma grenade detonated nearby. "We need to fall back." "Negative," Dennis barked. "We hold the line. Davis, what's your status?" Static crackled over the comm. Then Davis's voice broke through, barely audible over the sounds of battle. "We're taking heavy casualties," he yelled, gunfire and explosions nearly drowning out his words. "Kim and Taylor are down, I repeat. Kim and Taylor are down." Dennis felt a knot of dread in his stomach. The fortress's defenses were far more formidable than they had anticipated. His squad was being cut to ribbons, but they had to complete their mission. For Earth, for their fallen comrades, for the billions waiting back home, praying for victory. "Keep pushing forward," Dennis roared, leaping from cover and charging toward the fortress gates, his rifle blazing. "For humanity!" His squad rallied behind him, their weapons spitting fire as they advanced into the jaws of hell itself. Arcturian blood mixed with human on the scorched earth of Zephyrus Prime, the fate of worlds hanging in the balance. Fortress Galen loomed ahead, a bastion of alien might standing against the last hope of humanity. Dennis, Thompson, Lee and Petrov fought their way into the fortress's main control room, plasma rifles blazing. The massive chamber was dominated by a pulsating crystal, its eerie glow casting flickering shadows on the walls. Arcturian consoles and equipment surrounded the crystal, humming with power. "That must be what's powering this whole damn place," Dennis growled. "We take that out and the fortress is toast." Before they could make a move, a towering figure emerged from the shadows, flanked by a squad of elite Arcturian warriors. It was Warlord Galen, his eyes burning with malice. "Foolish humans," Galen snarled. "You think you can defeat me in my own stronghold?" Dennis and his team opened fire, plasma bolts sizzling through the air. Galen's guards returned fire, their weapons spitting deadly energy. The control room erupted into a chaotic firefight, consoles exploding and debris flying. Lee took a hit from Galen's plasma cannon, his chest bursting open in a spray of blood and gore. Thompson dove for cover, but a searing bolt caught him in the leg, sending him sprawling. Dennis saw red, his rage boiling over. He charged at Galen, firing as he ran. The warlord's shield absorbed the shots, but Dennis kept coming, slamming into Galen with the force of a freight train. They grappled, trading blows that would have shattered human bones. Galen was stronger, his Arcturian physiology granting him inhuman power, but Dennis was fueled by pure fury and the need for vengeance. Petrov, seizing the moment, dashed for the crystal, planting explosive charges at its base. Galen's guards tried to stop him, but Petrov was too quick, dodging their shots and darting back to cover. Dennis and Galen fought tooth and nail, the human refusing to yield. Galen's fists pounded Dennis like sledgehammers, but he gave as good as he got, striking at the warlord's weak points with brutal efficiency. Just as Galen was about to crush Dennis's skull with his bare hands, Petrov hit the detonator. The charges exploded, engulfing the crystal in a blinding flash. The resulting energy surge overloaded Galen's shield and weapons, sending him staggering back. Dennis leaped forward, slamming his fist into Galen's throat with all his strength. The Arcturian's neck snapped with a sickening crack, and he crumpled to the floor, dead. The crystal, destabilized by the blast, began to break apart, its pulsing light fading. The fortress shuddered, its defenses failing as the power core died. The remaining Arcturian soldiers, seeing their leader fallen and their stronghold collapsing, turned to flee in disarray. Dennis and Petrov sprinted through the crumbling fortress, dodging falling debris and leaping over the bodies of fallen Arcturians. The ground shook beneath their feet as distant explosions rocked the structure, Team Beta's charges detonating, sowing chaos and destruction in their wake. "Davis Chen, report," Dennis barked into his comlink, his voice hoarse from the smoke and dust filling the air. "Charges planted and detonated," Davis responded, his voice crackling with static. "The fortress is coming down around our ears. We need to get the hell out of here." As they rounded a corner, Dennis skidded to a halt, his eyes widening at the sight before him. A massive Arcturian dropship loomed overhead, its engines roaring as it descended towards the fortress. Reinforcements. New plan, Dennis yelled. Davis, Chen, forget the rendezvous. Get to the extraction point now. He turned to Petrov. We can't let those reinforcements land. We need to take out that dropship. Petrov nodded grimly. The hangar. If we can get our hands on one of their fighters... They ran, weaving through the fortress's labyrinthine corridors, the dropship's shadow growing larger with each passing second. The hangar was a scene of controlled chaos, Arcturian pilots and technicians scrambling to their craft as the fortress shuddered and groaned around them. Dennis and Petrov headed straight for the nearest fighter, a sleek, deadly-looking machine bristling with advanced weaponry. Dennis leaped into the cockpit, his hands flying over the unfamiliar controls as he strapped himself in. Petrov clambered into the rear of the ship, manning the weapon systems. I hope you know what you're doing. Dennis didn't respond, his focus entirely on the alien ship powering up around him. Plasma bolts sizzled past the cockpit as the Arcturians opened fire, realizing too late the threat in their midst. The fighter surged forward, blasting out of the hangar and into the smoke-filled sky. Dennis banked hard, the G-forces slamming him back into his seat as he brought the ship around to face the dropship. Weapons hot, Petrov shouted, his targeting computer already locking onto the enemy vessel. The dropship loomed before them, its hull bristling with plasma cannons and missile batteries. It opened fire, a storm of energy and metal filling the air between the two craft. Dennis jinked and weaved, the fighter's inertial dampeners straining to compensate as he pushed the ship to its limits. Plasma bolts flashed past the cockpit, close enough to make his hair stand on end. Petrov returned fire, the fighter's weapons spitting blue-white bolts of energy at the dropship. Its shields flared, absorbing the hits, but Dennis could see them weakening with each successive shot. The dropship launched a salvo of missiles, the projectiles streaking towards the fighter like angry hornets. Dennis gritted his teeth, throwing the ship into a wild corkscrew maneuver that sent the missiles spiraling off course. The dropship's shields failed, and Petrov's next volley punched through the hull, explosions blossoming across the vessel's surface. It listed to one side, smoke pouring from gaping holes in its armor. Dennis pressed the advantage, diving in close and raking the dropship's engines with plasma fire. The ship shuddered, its aft section erupting in a gout of flame and debris. Trailing fire and smoke, the dropship spiraled towards the surface of Zephyrus Prime, slamming into the ground with a titanic explosion that lit up the battlefield like a second sun. Dennis brought the fighter around, searching for any sign of Davis and Chen. He spotted them, two tiny figures sprinting across the war-torn landscape towards the extraction point. As he angled the fighter towards them, a burst of static crackled across the comm channels. A voice cold and imperious filled the cockpit. Humans, it said, each word dripping with hatred and disdain. You think you have won a victory here today, but you have only sealed your own doom. I am Emperor Zardoc, supreme leader of the Arcturian Empire, and I vow, by the blood of my ancestors, that I will personally lead the next assault on your pathetic species. I will not rest until every last one of you is wiped from the face of the galaxy. This I swear. Dennis felt a chill run down his spine at the Emperor's words. Beside him, Petrov swore softly in Russian. The battle was won, but the war, it seemed, was just beginning. The battered fighter limped through the debris-choked void, its hull scorched and pitted by the ferocious battle. Inside the cramped cockpit, Dennis Robertson slumped in his seat, his face a mask of exhaustion and grief. Beside him, Petrov muttered a prayer in Russian, his hands shaking as he gripped the controls. As they approached the Indomitable, Dennis saw the mighty battlecruiser's hangar bay doors slide open, a welcome sight after the hell they had just endured. The fighter touched down with a jarring thud, and Dennis clambered out, his legs unsteady beneath him. A crowd of cheering crewmen and officers surged forward, their faces alight with joy and relief. Dennis saw Admiral Novak pushing through the throng, his weathered face split by a rare smile. "How you did it, Robertson," Novak said, clasping Dennis's hand in a firm grip. "You crazy son of a bitch, you actually did it." Dennis managed a weak grin. But his heart was heavy with the weight of the lives lost. Lee, Thompson, Wilson, Kim, Taylor, good men, all of them. Their blood was on his hands, and no victory could wash it away. The celebration was short-lived. As Dennis and his surviving squad members, Petrov, Davis and Chen, were ushered to the medbay for treatment, a grim-faced communications officer intercepted them. "Sir," he said, handing a datapad to Admiral Novak, "we've intercepted a message from the Arcturian fleet. It's from Emperor Zardoz himself." Novak's face paled as he read the message, his jaw clenching with barely suppressed rage. He turned to Dennis, his eyes hard as flint. "Zardok's coming," he growled. "The bastard's vowed to personally lead the next assault on our fleet. Says he won't rest until every last human is wiped from the face of the galaxy." Dennis felt a chill run down his spine, but he met Novak's gaze with steely determination. "Then we'll be ready for him, sir. We'll make that Arcturian bastard regret the day he ever heard the name Dennis Robertson." Novak nodded, a fierce light in his eyes. "Damn right we will, and I'm giving you a new toy to play with, Robertson. The TDF Retribution, fastest, meanest ship in the fleet. She's got an antimatter cannon that'll punch a hole through an Arcturian battlecruiser like it was made of tissue paper, and shields that'll shrug off anything short of a supernova. Train your crew, master that ship, and when Zardoz shows his ugly face, you'll be the one to take him down. Understood?" Dennis saluted, ignoring the pain lancing through his battered body. "Yes, sir, it will be my pleasure." The TDF Retribution was unlike anything Dennis had ever seen. A sleek, deadly arrow of a ship, bristling with the most advanced weaponry humanity had ever devised. As he strode onto the bridge, his new crew snapping to attention, Dennis felt a surge of pride and determination. They drilled relentlessly, pushing the ship and its systems to their limits. The antimatter cannon, a glowing blue spire of barely contained destruction, hummed with power as they test-fired it into the void. The shields, a shimmering wall of energy, shrugged off simulated Arcturian attacks with ease. Dennis drove his crew hard, but he drove himself harder. He spent long hours in the simulator, honing his skills, learning every quirk and nuance of the Retribution systems. He pored over intelligence reports, studying Zardok's tactics, looking for weaknesses to exploit. When the Arcturian fleet finally arrived, a vast armada of sleek, deadly ships, Dennis was ready. He stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen, watching as the enemy ships took up formation. At the center of the Arcturian line was the Devastator, a massive, dagger-shaped vessel that dwarfed even the Retribution. Dennis knew that Zardoz was aboard that ship, watching, waiting, eager to crush humanity's last hope beneath his heel. "All ships, engage," Admiral Novak's voice crackled over the comm. "Let's show these Arcturian bastards what humanity's made of." The battle was joined, a swirling maelstrom of plasma fire and exploding ships. The human fleet fought with desperate courage, their weapons blazing as they hurled themselves at the Arcturian line. The Retribution was a blur of motion, its antimatter cannon spitting streams of blinding blue fire. Arcturian ships shattered and burned under its onslaught, but still more came, their weapons hammering at the Retribution's shields. "Shields at 60%, Petrov yelled from the weapons station. "We can't take much more of this." Dennis gritted his teeth, his eyes locked on the Devastator. "We don't need to. All we need to do is get close enough to that bastard Zardok's ship. Then we'll show him what real firepower looks like." The Retribution surged forward, its engines screaming as it plowed through the heart of the Arcturian fleet. Plasma bolts hammered its shields, alarms blaring as systems overloaded and failed. But still Dennis pushed on, his face a mask of grim determination. The Devastator loomed ahead, its guns thundering as it tried to swat the Retribution from the sky. "Antimatter cannon charged and ready," Petrov shouted. "Fire!" Dennis roared. A lance of blinding blue energy erupted from the Retribution's prow, slamming into the Devastator's shields. The Arcturian flagship shuddered under the impact, its shields flickering and failing. But still it fought on, its weapons hammering at the Retribution with relentless fury. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, crewmen screaming as shrapnel tore through flesh and bone. Dennis knew they couldn't take much more. The Retribution was on the verge of breaking apart, its systems failing one by one. There was only one thing left to do. "Ramming speed," he ordered, his voice hard as steel. "We're going to put that Arcturian bastard out of our misery once and for all." The crew looked at him in shock, but Dennis just stared back, his eyes blazing with righteous fury. "We're dead either way," he said, "but this way we take that son of a bitch Zardoc with us. For Earth, for the Alliance, for every man, woman, and child those Arcturian freaks have butchered. Let's do this." As one, the crew nodded, their faces set with the same grim determination. The Retribution surged forward, its engines howling as it hurtled towards the Devastator like an avenging angel. "Collision alert," the computer screamed. "Brace for impact." The two ships slammed together with a force that shook the very fabric of space. The Retribution crumpled like a tin can, its hull shattering, its crew thrown about like rag dolls. But even as it died, it took the Devastator with it. The Arcturian flagship, its shields gone, its hull breached in a dozen places, reeled away, trailing fire and debris. Dennis hauled himself to his feet, his face bloody, his uniform torn. He staggered to the escape pods, Petrov and a handful of other survivors stumbling after him. They made it out just in time, the pods blasting free of the dying Retribution moments before it exploded in a blinding flash of light. As they drifted in the void, watching the battle rage around them, Dennis saw the Devastator still burning, plunging towards the nearby sun. "Burn, you bastard," he whispered, his eyes fixed on the doomed ship. "Burn in hell." The Devastator hit the sun's surface and vanished, consumed by the raging inferno. With its destruction, the Arcturian fleet fell into disarray, ships scattering like frightened birds. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, surged forward, hammering at the fleeing Arcturians with everything they had. It was a victory, hard-won and bitter, but a victory nonetheless. As Dennis watched the last of the Arcturian ships flee into the void, he felt a hollow ache in his chest. So many lives lost, so much sacrifice. But it had been worth it to strike such a blow against the Arcturian menace. He knew the war was far from over. There would be other battles, other sacrifices. But as he looked out over the debris-strewn battlefield, he felt a flicker of hope amid the sorrow and the pain. Humanity would endure no matter the cost, and Dennis Robertson would be there, fighting to his last breath, a beacon of defiance against the darkness. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.